Subrahmanyam is here, and he will address all of you.
Good afternoon, friends. I'm here to make a statement on the developments of the last few days, the situation in the state right now, on what we plan to do over the coming few days. Okay.
Okay.
I intend to make a statement which I will read out, copies of which will be circulated later, and I don't intend to take any questions barring one or two. The statement answers most questions that you're likely to have. A fortnight ago, some major decisions were taken with a view to promoting the long-term welfare of the people of all the regions of the state and to ensure better governance and accelerated development. The government's approach was guided by the conviction that all-round development was the most credible solution to address separatist sentiments that were propagated by vested interests. Such sentiments were being used to legitimize a policy of cross-border terrorism that has cost the lives of thousands of inhabitants of the state and the country. The intent of terrorist attacks was to create an atmosphere of fear and terror and to block development that could unleash opportunities for the younger generation of people in the state. Among the groups that are well known for sponsoring violence and carrying out such attacks are Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, etc. Their record has been recognized by governments worldwide and by international organizations, including the United Nations. In implementing the decisions taken last fortnight, this history of cross-border terrorism required the government to put in place certain preventive steps as a precautionary measure. An important factor in doing so were credible inputs that such terrorist organizations were planning to undertake strikes in the state in the immediate future. The steps consequently taken included restrictions on free movement, prevention of large gatherings, restrictions on telecom connectivity, and closure of schools and colleges. A few preventive detentions of individuals were also made in accordance with the provision of law to maintain law and order and avoid breach of peace. Similar measures have had to be taken in the past also following violent incidents. This time, these measures have been taken by way of precaution only, keeping the safety and well-being of public at large. At the same time, steps were taken that there was no shortage of essential supplies. Medical facilities and hospitals continued to function. Electricity, water supply, and sanitation services are maintained. Pilgrims going on Hajj and returning from Hajj were specifically facilitated, and people associated with providing all these services have free movement. Periodically, there were relaxations in some of these restrictions to enable people to come out for their daily requirements. A media center has been opened with communication facilities to enable media to cover events in the state, with regular press briefings by senior government officials, including the Principal Secretary who is sitting next to me and the Director of Information sitting next to me. Sufficient number of passes have been issued to media persons to facilitate their movement and reporting by them. All major networks, satellite and cable TV networks are operational and newspapers are being published. There have been prolonged relaxations in the restrictions on Saturday and Sunday, that is the 10th and 11th of August prior to Eid, so that people could do their Eid shopping. Relaxations were also given on the day of Eid to enable people to perform their Eid prayers, which was done in large numbers throughout the state. There were provisions to enable people to go around and meet their friends and relatives and exchange Eid gifts. However, some restrictions were required on 14th and 15th of August in view of Independence Day celebrations yesterday, for which the terror threat perception was certainly greater, particularly in the light of the statements from across the border, which most of you have seen. As things stand today, 12 of the 22 districts are functioning normally, with some limited restrictions in 5 of these. The measures put in place have ensured that there has been not a single loss of life. I repeat, there has not been a single loss of life or serious injuries to anyone during the course of maintaining peace and order. We have prevented any loss of human life despite concerted efforts by terrorist organizations, radical groups, and continuing efforts by Pakistan to destabilize the situation. Keeping in view the evolving situation, as well as the cooperation of the people in maintaining peace, we are now taking measures to ease the restrictions in a gradual, calibrated manner. After today's Friday prayers, which the immediate reports have gone off quite peacefully right through the state, there would be an easing of restrictions in the next few days in an orderly way. Schools will be opened after the weekend, area-wise, so that children's studies do not suffer. As movement restrictions are removed, area by area, movement of public transport will be allowed in these areas. Government offices have been made fully functional from today, and the attendance in many offices is quite high. Telecom connectivity, which has been a point of sore concern, will gradually be eased and restored in a phased manner, keeping in mind the constant threat posed by terrorist organizations in using mobile connectivity to organize terror actions. Preventive detentions are being continuously reviewed, and appropriate decisions will be made based on law and order assessments. It is expected that over the next few days, as the restrictions get eased, life in Jammu and Kashmir will become completely normal. This is already visible on the roads to most of you, as the roads are full of regular traffic, and we expect to see it increase in the coming few days. The government appreciates that it is the cooperation of the people of Jammu and Kashmir that is critical to help maintaining peace and public order. Its focus is on the earliest return to normalcy, while ensuring that terrorist forces are given no opportunity to wreak havoc as in the past. Thank you.
May I ask you a question?
What?
These have been extraordinary restrictions over the last 10, 12 days. But does the government have an assessment? You talked about terrorist threats and stuff. But does the government have an assessment about how the people of the state have taken the decision of reorganizing the state as well? Because there is a lot of unhappiness.
I am not getting into that right now. We are actually talking about the restrictions that have been placed and the gradual unrolling of those restrictions. As things come back to normalcy, all of you will have a better assessment. What you're telling me is anecdotal in nature. So whatever one is hearing is anecdotal. When things come back to full normalcy, one will have a better idea. 1 second. Yep, go ahead.
You suggested that there are elements across the border which are trying to fan trouble in Kashmir.
Right.
And certain militant groups on this side, like Hizbul Mujahideen, Lashkar-e-Taiba. So how do you categorize PDP, HNC, whose leaders are behind the bars? Are they also getting directions from any side?
I have named certain organizations. Our primary responsibility is to ensure that there is no loss of life. Most of you have seen the events of 2008, 10 and 16. What happened then and what has happened now. There has been not a single loss of life, and it is to the credit of the people of the state and the government and the security forces that they have managed to get over the situation very quietly with utmost calm and no loss of civilian life. What is being propagated from across the border is apparent to all, and there is certainly an attempt to ensure that peace and calm in the state are disturbed. The people of the state have been the biggest victims of all this, and my statement actually says everything. Okay, since you asked me about telephone lines, you will see a gradual restoration from tonight and tomorrow onwards. You will find a lot of Srinagar functioning tomorrow morning. BSNL takes a couple of hours to get back to action. Exchange by exchange, they will be switching it on. Over the weekend, you will have most of these lines functional.